If you want to catch a giant bass, the single most important thing you can do isn't change your bait, your electronics, or your technique. It's fish a lake that grows them. Because most water, even good bass water, even lakes you have fun on, physically cannot produce a 10-pounder. The lake itself won't allow it. And once you understand what makes a giant bass lake different from a normal bass lake, you'll stop wondering why you can't seem to catch one, and start driving to where they actually live. That's the reframe. Most anglers spend their whole lives trying to catch a giant on water that will never produce one, and they blame themselves. The lake was the problem the whole time. So here's what makes a lake grow giant bass, because this actually is a mechanism. It's not luck, it's not magic, and it's not what most people think. There are 4 factors, and a giant bass lake has to have most of them working together. Miss any 2, and the ceiling caps out at 4 or 5 pounds, no matter what you do. The first factor is forage. This is the biggest one by far. A bass grows to the size the food will allow. If the biggest thing she can eat in your lake is a 2-inch minnow, she's going to top out around 3 pounds. If she can eat 6-inch shad and 8-inch bluegill and the occasional crawdad, she can push past 6. If she can eat trout, actual big trout, she can grow past 10. Every legitimate double-digit largemouth ever caught has come out of water with big, high-calorie prey. That's why California became the giant bass capital of the country. Not because of the bass, because of the rainbow trout that got stocked into the reservoirs for people to catch, and the bass got fat eating them. That's the number 1 lever. Big food equals big fish. Small food equals small fish. Doesn't matter how many bass are in there. Doesn't matter how you fish for them. The second factor is genetics. This is where the Florida strain conversation comes in. There are 2 main genetic lineages of largemouth bass: the northern strain and the Florida strain. Northern strain caps out around 10 pounds, maybe 12 on a truly great lake. The Florida strain can push into the low 20s. It's the same species on paper, but genetically, they grow to different maximum sizes. Almost every state record bass caught in the last 30 years, from Texas to California to Arizona to Alabama, was a Florida strain fish or a Florida northern hybrid, in water that was deliberately stocked with them. If your local lake has northern strain bass only, your realistic ceiling there is maybe 8 pounds, and that's if everything else lines up. To have a real shot at a double digit, you need Florida genetics in the water. The third factor is growing season. Bass grow when the water's warm and metabolic rates are up. In Minnesota, a bass gets maybe 4 or 5 months of real growing weather a year. In Florida or Southern California, she gets 10 or 11. Over a decade of life, that adds up to years of extra growing time. A 10-year-old bass in Florida has had roughly twice as many productive months as a 10-year-old bass in Wisconsin. Same fish, same food, same genetics. One is bigger because she's had more time to eat. That's why the giant bass zone runs from the deep south up through Texas and out to California. It's the overlap of Florida strain genetics, warm water year-round, and heavy forage. Miss any one of those and the ceiling drops. The fourth factor is water chemistry and fertility. Not every warm Florida strain lake grows giants. Some just don't. And the difference usually comes down to how productive the water is, how much plankton, how much shad recruitment, how healthy the food web is. Fertile lakes with steady shad hatches, clean vegetation, and stable water levels are food factories. Sterile lakes, deep, clear, low nutrient, or reservoirs with wild fluctuations that kill the vegetation, just don't have enough biomass in the system to grow monsters no matter what else is right. So put it all together. A giant bass lake has big forage in it. Trout, big shad, big bluegill. It has Florida strain genetics in the water. It's in a climate with a long growing season. And it's fertile enough to keep the food web humming. That's your recipe. And every legitimately great big bass lake in the country, Toho, Fork, Guerrero, Castaic, the California reservoirs, Falcon in its heyday, Guntersville when it's on, hits at least 3 out of 4. Now, here's the part that matters most, because it turns this whole thing from trivia into a decision. When does this not apply? And what do you do if your local lake isn't one of these? First, northern lakes can still produce a real trophy. It's just a different fish. A 7-pound smallmouth is functionally a giant. A 10-pound walleye is functionally a giant. If you're in Wisconsin or Minnesota or upstate New York, and largemouth bass over 8 pounds physically don't exist in your water, Redefining what a trophy means for your area is a much better use of your time than trying to grow one that can't grow. Second, if you want a real shot at a double-digit largemouth, the honest answer is you probably have to travel. That's not what people want to hear, but it's true. The 4 factors don't accidentally line up in most of the country. If you live in a state that produces a state record bass under 9 pounds, no amount of skill on your home lake is going to break that ceiling. A 1-week trip to Florida or Texas or California will give you more shots at a true giant than a lifetime of fishing your local pond. Third, and this one is important, a giant bass lake doesn't mean you'll catch a giant. It just means one exists to catch. Even on the best water in the country, a 10-pounder is rare. The right lake gives you a shot. It doesn't give you a fish. That still comes down to time on the water. But at least you're playing a game that can be won. The bass you catch aren't limited by your skill nearly as much as anglers think. They're limited by the water they live in. Pick better water, and everything else takes care of itself. Tell me in the comments, what's the biggest bass you've ever caught, and what lake did she come from? I want to see the water that's producing where you fish.